So today I want to talk to you guys about the ego and the soul, and more importantly, how to ditch the ego-led mind and how to move into the soul-led mind so that you can truly step into your alignment and your life of purpose and passion and, of course, profit. So first, let's talk about what the ego actually is, because there's many misconceptions out there about the ego, and we quite often refer to the ego as a negative thing, and it's not actually a bad thing. So many people talk about ego in the sense of, oh, he's so egotistical or she's so ego driven, as in they think a lot of themselves, they think they're better than everyone else, they think they're superior in some way, shape or form. That is not the type of ego that we're talking about here. That might be better described as arrogance or an inflated sense of self, or a misguided or misaligned projection of energy into the environment, the situation, the whatever. The ego I'm talking about is the ego that protects you, the ego that keeps you safe, and that is ultimately what it's designed for. So the ego that stops you jumping off a cliff, the ego that stops you putting your hand on a burning stove because that's going to hurt like crap, but also the same ego that keeps you in a toxic relationship because it's too scary to break out of that relationship, or the ego that keeps you in the job that you hate because it's secure and it's safe, or the ego that keeps you doing things to please your parents because you're conditioned to believe that that's what you're supposed to do. And in this sense, the ego doesn't work brilliantly for us. It certainly keeps us safe, it keeps us in a relationship, it keeps us in a job, it keeps us people pleasing, but that doesn't really allow you to walk your soul path and step into your soul fulfillment and expansion. So we want to be able to recognize when the ego is acting and recognize when your soul is burning to expand, so that we can honor this battle of ego versus soul. Now, if you understand how the ego comes into play in the first place, all of this will make sense. So basically, when we are souls in the light realm, we are just light, we are just a soul, and I'm sure you know and you've heard before that we are not bodies with a soul, we are souls with a body. So when the soul decides to incarnate onto planet Earth, it takes a physical form, a baby. I'm growing one right now. And what happens when that soul comes into the physical body, there's a chemical reaction that takes place because energy is meeting energy, and when energy meets energy, there is always a chemical reaction. This is scientific law, right? When this chemical reaction takes place, there is an emission of a new energy. Okay, so soul energy, physical body, combining, there's a chemical reaction, the chemical reaction births a new energy. That new energy is your ego. So your ego is born literally at the moment your soul meshes with your physical body. And you can think of your ego as literally an invisible layer that sits right on top of your skin that keeps your soul contained. It keeps your soul inside. Now, your soul is not technically designed to be contained, but obviously for it to be able to walk around in physical form, it does need to be contained to a point. The ego has kind of over-egged this containment over time. And the ego has over-egged this because of the experiences that we've had in the patriarchy of the last 3,000 years. We weren't always as ego-driven as we are now today. We used to be far more soul driven thousands and thousands of years ago. We're not so much anymore because of the experiences that we've had, because of all that we've witnessed and all that we've felt. The ego's become stronger and stronger and stronger because the ego is a protection mechanism. It is there to keep your soul inside your physical body. It is there to keep you in one place, but it's overworking, it's overacting at the moment. So here's the easiest way to differentiate when you are coming from an ego-based place or a soul-based place, and it's quite simple. Your ego has a tendency towards the more negative emotions because it's a protector, whereas your soul has a tendency towards the more positive emotions because it's naturally expansive. Your soul is here to expand, your soul is here to step into its true purpose, its life path. Your soul is here to fulfill the incarnation intentions in alignment with the universal laws, of course. If you don't know the universal laws, please go check them out. But your soul is ultimately here to contribute to the collective consciousness, to raise the vibration of the planet for the greatest, highest good of all. Your soul can't do that unless it's expanding. If your soul is restricted and repressed, it can't do a great deal. In the same way, any human being can't do a great deal if they're restricted and repressed. But what we don't realize is it's not just conditioning, the patriarchy, economy, whatever excuse you want to give it, that's repressing you. You are also repressing yourself by allowing yourself to be ego-led. And the ego-led voice in your head is the negative one. So your ego is the negative, your soul is the positive. Your ego is contracting and your soul is expanding. So anytime that you're in a situation or an environment, or you're feeling an experience, or you're having a conversation, or you're just kind of tuning into your emotions, any negative mind chatter, any negative feelings, any negative sensations, anything that feels like it's not abundant and expansive is your ego. That's basically what's happening. So when you feel all of these negative frequencies, you get to say, hey, ego, I recognize that this is you leading my beliefs, my decisions, and my actions right now, which are obviously impacting on the outcome of my life. So instead of subscribing to the negative mind chatter, the negative feelings, the negative experience that you're having inside your physical vessel, I choose different. I choose to turn to the positive instead. And you turn to the positive and you reframe your situation, you reframe your thoughts, you begin to have a conversation inside your own head, which is your ego talking to your soul. And you get to say, hey, no, do you know what? I don't subscribe to that negative thought. Actually, I choose the positive thought instead. You get to say, hey, I don't subscribe to that negative emotion. I want to feel a positive one instead, and do all that you can to summon up that positive energy inside of you. If you guys haven't checked out my Energy Alchemy course, by the way, I really highly recommend it because it's fantastic for alchemizing your own energy like that. It's genius. But you don't necessarily need to be an energy alchemist to transform your own energy. You can do this simply by recognizing where your emotions are at, recognizing where your thoughts and feelings are at, and choosing higher vibrations. The thing is, many of us don't even realize we have negative mind chatter. We don't realize that the negative emotions that we're feeling are misaligned. We just assume it's normal. We just let it carry on. The more it carries on, the more powerful it gets. It snowballs, the law of expansion kicks in, and before you know it, you are living 100% of the time from ego and not from soul. So a little tip that I have is to have some sort of hairband or bobble, you guys don't call them bobbles in the US, a hairband on your wrist, and every time you find yourself feeling a frequency that you're just not comfortable with, like anything at all, anything that makes you feel icky or uncomfortable, whether that's just boredom or full-on anxiety and depression, you can ping this, and this is your pattern interrupter, and it's to interrupt the pattern of emotion, negativity, the low vibration frequency that you're feeling. And it's an invitation for you to give yourself permission to choose the positive instead. When you choose the positive, you are naturally moving into an expansive state. When you're moving into an expansive state, your soul has no choice but to take over. So really, if we're going to simplify it right down, that's the crux of it. Choose the positive over the negative, but learn to recognize the negative at speed. It needs to become a daily habitual routine where as soon as you sense the negative, you say, no, I choose the positive, and you choose to expand. It's harder than you might think. It's so easy to say, and it's all well and good me saying this, but you try practicing it and see if for the next 21 days you can turn every single negative thought into a positive one in under a minute. See if you can even register all of the negative thoughts. And it's so interesting because when you bring consciousness to how much your ego is leading, all of a sudden you'll be overwhelmed with, oh my God, I think negative shit all the time. I always let my mind wander. I always let things get to me. I always let things deflate me. I always let things discourage me and get me down. I get frustrated so easily. I get wound up so easily. It's incredible how much of an influence our ego has on our day-to-day lives. But our day-to-day lives is what's contributing to our ultimate life goal and our life path. So it's those small, tiny little thoughts, those behaviors, those actions, those beliefs that are ego-led that need to be alchemized instantly into soul-led thoughts, beliefs, decisions, actions, inspirations, and outcomes. Soul-led ones are positive and they're expansive. So, Hope that was useful. Go do your thing, check in with me, let me know how you're doing, and here is an official 21-day challenge to alchemize all of your ego negativity into soul positivity. Good luck!